Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to Tout Suite Social Club. Today is a great day. Today we'll be talking about truffles. Because in January 18th to the 21st, there is a Napa Truffle Festival here in Napa Valley. Today we'll be talking about truffles, but also the science of growing truffles. With us to explain us a little bit how it works, we have a couple of guests. We have Dr. Paul Thomas that is joining us by phone from Manchester United in England, UK, and we have Robert Cheng that will lead us a little bit into this conversation and talk to us about the science of it. First of all, if you have any question, you can tweet your question at Toot Social or at Napa Truffle Fest. So this is it for that. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. My name is Didier, and we're going to go directly to the UK and talk to Dr. Paul Thomas. Doctor, thank you for joining us. How are you?
Thank you. Good morning. Yep, very well, thank you. Enjoying the nice UK wet weather. How are you all over there?
That's fantastic. It's been like a cold year in our side. Yeah, pretty freezing, 35 degrees this morning, but It's going to be a nice day.
Wow.
So, Dr. Paul, how did you become interested in truffles and mushroom in general?
It's a bit of a geeky story, actually. I've always been into foraging, which over here is going out and collecting wild foods from from the woodlands and from fields. So I used to do that and collect wild mushrooms like chanterelles and porcini. And then I read that truffles grew in England, and I couldn't find any, so I looked into ways of growing them. And at the time, I was doing a PhD at the University of Sheffield over here, and my interest just spiraled out of control. We started researching academically, involved a few technicians, and eventually developed a way to grow them. So it was a long descent from not being able to find a truffle in the UK to developing a way to grow them.
Yeah, so talk to us a little bit about your academic interest into truffle and how you came up to that. What was were you trying to look for the shrooms? I don't know.
Yeah, well, in terms of truffles are actually, they got some really fascinating biology. The way they grow, they're obviously underground, and they depend on a living tree to survive. So they grow in the root system of this tree, and the tree helps the truffle to grow, and the truffle helps the tree to grow. So it's a really symbiotic relationship, which makes it very interesting from a scientific standpoint. So what we've developed is a very large network of research sites, which spans over 4 continents now. And I think at the last count we're in about 23 countries. But what we're doing is pooling data from this huge geographic region on different climates, different management methods, and pooling it all into one big data bank. And using that kind of expansive knowledge, really, we're learning a lot of things about truffles which previously we didn't know. So from an academic standpoint, it's fascinating. It gives us huge access to data, and of course, from a cultivation standpoint, it helps us to grow them. So it's really a fascinating industry.
Yeah. So how many companies do you know that are doing the same thing? Are you the only one, or it seems to be like a lucrative type of business, isn't it? Because truffles are pretty expensive.
Yeah, it's quite interesting actually, because truffles were first successfully inoculated onto root systems, and the first commercial orchards were started back in the 70s in France. So this kind of technology in various different states and more sort of rustic states has been going on for a long time. So there's quite a few different companies and government organizations who have been producing trees, but none of them have developed the kind of expansive system that we have. So most of these will provide trees to farmers, they plant them locally, and they share their knowledge locally, and it's all very sort of a very diffuse way of looking at the whole system. Whereas I think we're the only people in the world who have this very collaborative approach and this bringing everyone under one umbrella, so to speak. So we're the only ones working that way in terms of truffle cultivation. Which is quite exciting.
So can you talk to us a little bit about the scientific methodology for the truffle cultivation that you have developed and how you apply that?
Yeah, well, there's been there's many different facets to the world of truffle cultivation, and there are many different challenges. The first challenges really are to produce a tree which has a good level of truffle fungus on the roots, so that it will grow well. Another facet to that is that you have to prepare the ground correctly, and you need to grow them in the right climatic zone. So we've developed very rigorous protocols for that. So we can take land which is previously unsuitable, and we can add a lot of limestone, trace elements, and turn it into suitable ground for truffle growing. And then the third facet to it really is to make sure you're growing the right species of truffle. There's a lot of problems in Europe, and I believe also a little bit in the US, of people inoculating trees with what they think are expensive truffles, but what they're actually inoculating with are inferior truffles. For example, in Europe, we've got Chinese truffles growing in the ground in France, in Italy, and that people have put in accidentally, thinking they were growing the more expensive species. So we have DNA testing protocols to prevent that. So there's lots of different arms to it, really, and we're working on all of them. And then, of course, when the trees are planted, there's in-field methodology, making sure you're managing the plantation right, and that you're achieving maximum yields and for the maximum length of time possible. So there's many different arms to it.
You just talked about Chinese truffles. What is that?
Yeah.
I mean,
how
many different type of truffles that there is?
Well, there's actually, in terms of edible truffles, there's a large number of what we call subterranean fungi, so fungi which fruit underground, and those include truffles. And of these, there's probably about 23 species which you can eat and which are good to eat. And some of these include some truffles which taste like smoky bacon crisps, some taste like garlic. There's a huge spectrum. But of the good ones and the ones which are economically viable, there's only really 4 key species. And then the most famous of which is probably the Perigord truffle, the black winter truffle, which is one that we're growing in the US. And the issue with the Chinese truffle is it looks very, very similar to that species, but it has almost no scent. So people import these, mix them in with the more expensive species, and sell them as the more expensive truffle. So when they're bringing in Chinese truffles at, say, $20 a kilo, mixing them into a truffle species which costs, say, 1,000 euros a kilo, or $2,000 a kilo even, it's an easy way for them to make a lot of money. So we have this large problem in the truffle industry, but a lot of truffles are contaminated with the Chinese truffle. So that's the main issue with the Chinese one.
I think we just have a question coming up here from Kathleen. Kathleen, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. I just wanted to know the difference between the winter and the summer truffle.
It's a good question. They're both truffles which are black on the outside, so they both have an exterior which looks fairly similar. So they're a very dark coloured truffle on the outside, and then on the inside, the winter truffle is quite often very dark inside, whereas the summer truffle is a lighter colour. It's a sort of tan colour, and also, as you notice from their names being summer and winter truffle, they fruit at these time points. So the winter one fruits in the winter, summer one fruits in the summer. And the flavours, the winter one's very, very strong. The summer one is slightly milder. So they have a slightly different flavour profile, but they look quite similar on the exterior, but slightly different in the interior. But both very, very tasty truffles. And both the ones that you can grow as well.
Thank you very much. The next question here that I would like to approach is I would like to talk about the truffle orchards, and so what kind of science goes into that, what is? Can you tell us a little bit about what is a truffle orchard?
Yeah, it's from our point of view, it's quite a complicated thing because there's many different facets to it. What we're doing when we're creating a truffle orchard is we're amending the soil of the site to make it very similar to natural truffle growing soil. Then we're creating trees which have the fungus growing on the root system of the trees, and then we're planting them in the ground. So it looks very much like a standard orchard. And then when they're in the ground, we're managing that site correctly to make sure moisture levels are correct, make sure trace element levels are correct, and to prevent any disease. And then eventually these trees will produce truffles, and the truffles will grow under the ground. They'll be associated with the trees, so they'll be fairly near to the trees, and we go out and find them with dogs in the orchard. But from our point of view, there's a lot of different aspects involved in it. But for our partners, it's quite an easy thing to set up because as long as they're in the right climatic zone and they have the right soil, we can come along and do all the hard work, as it were.
Great, thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, please tweet your questions at Toot Social or at the Napa Truffle Fest. You can jump in if you have any,
sure.
You want to add some other things.
Sure.
So, so what kind of a result have you seen from this technology, the orchard, and is it like growing? Is that working?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Sorry, there was a slight delay then. We're getting some really great results from the UK where we're seeing really good rates of colonisation. We're seeing exciting markers of production, and also just in Australia this year, we started some trees in Australia in 2009, so we can produce some truffles out of season. And we produced our first truffle on a tree down there this year, and that was on a tree which was just 3 years old, which is for truffle cultivation, it's a remarkable time frame. It's very, very quick to produce. So we're getting some very exciting bits of information and developments coming through. So it's quite an exciting time for us. It's been 11 years of development, and now we're finally starting to see the fruits of our labour.
And I think it's really exciting. I think Paul touched upon that a little bit. That the fact that we were able to use this technology and demonstrate that here in Australia, for example, producing the first truffles not in 5 years, not in 7 years, which is fairly typical of the usual orchards, but instead in 3 years' time after planting. That is an extraordinary technical accomplishments, and I think to be able to do that really demonstrates the viability and the effectiveness of the technology that we've developed.
Yeah. So, Dr. Paul Thomas, another question here. We talked about mostly black truffles and all that, but what about white truffles? One day will we be able to find some like white truffle in Manchester?
Well, we're working on it. So we've been working on it for a long time, and of course, for anyone listening to this who doesn't realise, the very famous white truffles, they quite often trade for, I would say, $4,000-5,000 a kilo. So they're really expensive fungi. In 2004, they hit 10,000. So they're incredibly expensive. But with these, they're very, very hard to grow. We've been inoculating trees. Other groups have been trying for a long period of time, but it's very complicated. There's a role for the fungus. There's some bacteria issues we don't fully understand. I think there's other flora involved. So that's going to be a very long-term project for the famous white truffle. But there's another white truffle species that you can cultivate. There's a similar flavour profile, and that's one that we're introducing also to the US. And it's really quite delicious. It's a very similar flavour profile, just slightly milder. And that's a springtime truffle called the white Borchai truffle.
Uh-huh.
So,
go ahead.
I was going to say, so we'll be able to produce hopefully white truffles very soon in the US, but it will probably take a little bit longer to produce the very famous white truffles. But a species of white truffle will come along quite soon.
Yeah. So, and I want to just go back a little bit to the orchard here. Is there like any specific trees that tend to be a little bit better than any others for the grow or the inoculation of truffles? That's what you do, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there's two species of tree which are most extensively used, and that's oak trees, so a number of species of oak trees, and also English hazel and Turkish hazel, and they are the core trees which are used for truffle cultivation, and those are still the primary ones that we employ, although we are experimenting with other tree species. For example, we use European beech species, a silver birch, and also pines. The core of our orchards are really hazel and oaks, but we're trying to get diversity as high as possible and maintain diversity within our sites to buffer them against any tree diseases which may appear. So we're doing quite a lot of work on that on host trees, and it's I think that's going to throw up some interesting data hopefully this year.
Yep. So Now I'm going to turn a little bit with Robert and bring into the conversation here because if Dr. Paul Thomas is the science behind that, someone has to promote and talk about it, and Robert, you are doing that. And let's talk a little bit about the American Truffle Company and how long this ATC, I believe you call it, has been around.
Sure. The American Truffle Company, or ATC, has been around since late 2007. So we're going. So this is our 5th year, going on 6th year, and and we've experienced quite a lot of growth in these 5 years. So business has been very, very good for us.
So how you become interested in the mushroom world, in the truffles, and did you create this association, so to speak?
It's actually very interesting. I've always been a foodie myself, and I love cooking. I love scoping out the local ingredients, the local specialty food wherever I travel. And it happens that I lived in Europe for almost 2 years, and I had my first truffles in an Italian bistro in the middle of Munich. And I was completely hooked. Yeah, it's amazing flavor, and it's just extraordinary. Never had anything like that.
Do you remember the truffle? Was it white or was it Perigord?
It was a Perigord black truffle, yeah. And it was done very, very simply. It was tagliatelle pasta, handmade, of course, and then just cooked al dente with butter, and then truffles shaved on top. It was a very, very simple dish, but the aroma was just incredibly intoxicating.
It sounds strange to me that you have to go to Germany to have something very Italian.
That's right. So coming back from the U.S., I thought to myself, well, I have a science background, I have a biology background, and also study business. So I thought to myself, I love truffles, and it's very expensive. I wonder if you can grow it. Yeah. So I started doing my homework on the internet and trying to find if there is anyone in the world that really has the science to cultivate truffles. Now, of course, you can find a lot of information on the internet, but when it comes to truffle cultivation, unfortunately, the vast majority of what you do find on the internet is either myth or misinformation. There was only one person that I was able to find, and I was very specific about finding the one person, the one company that had the science to really promote truffle cultivation, and that person I found was Dr. Paul Thomas. So I reached out to Paul.
By email or give him a phone call?
No, I think we started emailing back and forth, Paul, in sometime in 2005, 2006, and then we arranged for a meeting. Yeah. I flew to London, and Paul came down to London, and Paul, I still remember very vividly. We met at a corner pub. I think it was Leicester Square. And a 1-hour meeting turned into a 4-hour meeting. And we really hit it off. And unfortunately, at the time, Paul did not have any operation here in North America, so I couldn't get trees and start cultivating. But that actually turned out to be a great thing because, long story short, Paul invited me to become his partner, to start and to run the North American operation, so that his technology can then be translated and implemented here in North America. Yeah.
So this is the way you remember the meeting, Dr. Paul?
Yeah. Well, we actually met. I don't think Robert mentioned them. We met in a good old British pub. Over fish and chips, so it was a very, very British meeting, a far cry from a truffle lunch. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the way we started. Robert emailed. We had some fish and chips in London, and he flew out again, and we got the ball rolling. and it took a while to get up and running, but now we are, and it's going really good.
Fantastic. So, Robert, tell us a little bit about the what kind of condition and land condition and climate do you have in North America that you find ideal for truffles?
So, very good question, Didier. I think a lot of times people want to know what is the quote ideal condition for cultivating truffles, and in fact, there's a range of conditions that are conducive to truffle cultivation. There's really not one single ideal condition, and in general, what we like to see are a number of factors. Number one, the soil needs to drain well. So just like grapevines do not like wet feet, truffles do not like wet feet, and therefore the soil needs to drain well. Number two, the climate is something that we have developed ways to compensate for the more temperate, more moderate climates in North America, where winters aren't freezing, the ground doesn't freeze. We can plant both types of truffles, the winter truffle as well as the summer truffle. For the northern latitudes, for example, we have client partners in Ontario and in Quebec, Canada, and for those colder climates, we would plant the summer Burgundy truffle. So, in fact, if we look at the entire North America, regardless of where you are, the chances are that you'll be able to plant at least one type of truffle, if not both. Mm-hmm. So, soil, climate are both considerations.
Yeah. Yes. That's very interesting. So, so in the U.S., what are the regions that you tend to work the most? I mean, do you have like a truffle farm or orchard in, let's say, in Kansas?
So what we tend to see is the West Coast as well as the East Coast adopting more and more of the truffle cultivation. We are getting more and more inquiries from the Midwest, okay. But the majority of our client partners are here along the West Coast as well as on the East Coast. Mm-hmm. But as I mentioned, very big parts of North America, you can plant either the Burgundy truffle alone, or you can plant Burgundy truffle as well as the Perigord truffle.
Yeah. So you're talking about the importance of drainage for soil. It kind of seems to me you almost can't plant vines. So is it like Sonoma and Napa big clients for you, or?
Absolutely. Sonoma and Napa, there's actually very rapidly developing interests for truffle cultivation. And in fact, if you look at the native climates in Europe for truffles, a lot of times it coincides with the wine with the grape growing regions in France and in Italy. So and here in Napa and Sonoma, obviously we have a very substantial grape growing industry. And so from a location, soil, climate perspective, Sonoma and Napa are very well suited. Now on top of that, it is a great way to diversify, because a lot of times vineyards are practicing biodynamic farming techniques, mm-hmm. where at least 10% of your land has to be used for some other purpose other than growing grapes. And truffles are a great diversification vehicle, and the labor is there, the resources are there, the machineries are there. So for a vineyard or a winery to diversify into truffle cultivation, it's a very natural.
That's an extension thing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, Dr. Paul, flatland or hillside for truffles?
It depends, actually, depending on your rainfall region. If you're in an area with lots of rainfall, then slightly sloping ground is pretty good for drainage, but also if you're in a marginal climate, if you're in a climate where perhaps the temperatures are towards the lower end of the spectrum of what we would class would be suitable for that species, then slightly sloping ground on a southwest facing slope is pretty ideal, really, as it warms the ground a little bit more. So it's all site specific. You know, I think this is one of the problems with information on the internet. You know, you can go on and read that you need southeast facing ground, hilly ground, but in some circumstances that might not be suitable. You know, if the area is quite warm and such. So really, it's really site specific, and it incorporates a wide range of aspects.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. And do you usually need a rich topsoil to grow truffles or not?
Paul, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, yeah, typically not really, because the textbook truffle soil, the traditional truffle soil in a lot of the natural growing regions in France is only actually about 40 centimeters deep, and that's overlying fissured limestone rocks. So poor soil definitely works very well for truffle cultivation, and also, you know, you can amend your soil conditions. So if the soil is poor, but it's poor because it's deficient in certain elements which we need for truffles, then we just need to add those elements. And likewise, in very rich soil, if the balance is slightly out of kilter, we can amend that balance again. So a lot of our sites are on reasonable and poor soils, and they actually work pretty well, whereas they wouldn't do so for other crops.
So I think just to add to that, I think it's important to come back to what Paul mentioned earlier, that truffles and their host trees, oak trees or filbert trees, they exist in symbiotic relationships, so they benefit each other. Mm-hmm. So and part of the science is really to figure out what is the most ideal condition that we can create so that the trees feel the most need to collaborate with the truffle organism, okay, and vice versa. So if the trees are too comfortable with lots of nutrients around, mm-hmm, they have less incentive, okay, to collaborate with the mycorrhiza. And therefore, it's important to stress the trees to a certain extent so that this symbiotic relationship can be optimized. Yeah. And that's where really the science comes in, is, well, how far do you stress the tree? You don't, yeah, want to stress the tree so much that the tree dies, yeah, or becomes very unhealthy. And if you don't stress it enough, you're not optimizing the symbiotic relationship. So that's where the massive amount of data that we have, drawing upon over 23 countries across 4 continents, really can give us a very tailored approach to your specific land condition, yeah, your specific microclimate, what to do to stress your trees, how much moisture do you maintain, and what type of a trace element profile do you maintain, etc. So it's really a very scientific approach to create a optimized and stressful environment for the trees, just enough so that the trees and the mycorrhiza, yeah, are collaborating.
That's interesting. So in a sense, if you can grow grape, you can grow truffles. That's pretty much, you need pretty much the same climate conditions, you need the same soil, and growing those truffles is very similar to the vine. So
that's right, and I might add that not only is it true that if a soil is suitable for grapes, most likely it will be suitable for truffles, but even for soil that may not necessarily be suitable for grapes, okay, it could very well be suitable for growing truffles, okay, because grapes are you can probably characterize it as a little bit more finicky, and therefore requires a certain profile in the soil. But truffles, both from a natural perspective, their growing range, their suitable soil range is bigger, and we have ways to scientifically maintain the soil and to amend the soil to the right conditions. So, so in fact, even soil that's not conducive to grapes often are conducive to truffles.
I hope you like people from the wineries hear that here. But so Sonoma, Napa, maybe Paso, and the Oregon and all that. What is the really what you found the attractive part for wineries to go ahead and start to plant truffles, and can you make money?
That's a very, very good question, Didier. I think wineries are really discovering that truffles are both an economically very viable alternative and complementary to grape growing, as well as an endeavor that requires a minimum amount of labor.
Uh-huh.
So from these two perspectives and these two factors, it's abundantly clear if you look at the numbers that growing truffles can be 7 to 10 times as profitable as growing grapes in general. Now, of course, it certainly depends on what types of grapes, what varieties that you grow. But the point is that even if you consider the most expensive type of grapes that you can grow, truffles are still much more profitable. You get a higher revenue top line on a per acre basis, and you have much less labor. You have much less cost per acre, and therefore the result is a much higher profit margin. In our experience is the profit margin is better than 90%.
Wow.
When you're talking about truffles. Therefore, from a business economic perspective, definitely truffles are very profitable, and it makes a lot of sense.
Hey, Dr. Paul, I have an idea. Have you ever thought about inducing the fungus into the vines?
Well, I'd love to. The only problem is there's groups of plants which support different groups of fungi on the roots, and they're ones which grow on the outside of the roots and some which grow inside the roots. And unfortunately, vines form the different type that the truffle needs. So unfortunately, it's not something we could do, but I mean, it'd be amazing if we could.
Yeah, that would be a good thing, right?
That would be amazing. Yeah.
So let's say I have about 20 acres, and I call you and I say, hey Robert, I saw your show on Tout de Suite Social Club today, and I'm very interested of planting this and getting to know a little bit more about having those 20 acres planted with trees that will provide me with truffles. So what do I have to do to have my soil ready? And do I have to knock down everything, remove all the big boulders, and how do I go about that?
Sure, Didier. So a typical process goes something like this. So your land needs to be cleared of most trees. Now, if you have an isolated couple of trees here and there, it's fine. We can plant around them. But in principle, the best type of land is land that has been cleared of trees. If you have rocks on the surface, not an issue. You don't really need to remove them. But the first step would be to get a soil analysis. Now, of course, many people here in Napa and Sonoma are very familiar with soil analysis. However, there is a certain set of things that we look for that are different from grape growing, and therefore, typically we ask that you get a soil analysis that tests for the specific things that we need to look at for truffle cultivation. And so from that analysis results, we will be able to quantifiably confirm that if your soil is suitable for truffle cultivation. And I actually have not seen any soil in Napa and Sonoma so far that isn't capable of supporting truffles. But we like to have that soil analysis done to quantify and to confirm. So that would be the first step. Now, based on the analysis results, and specifically based on the pH level that comes back, typically for truffles, we would need to create a relatively high pH in the soil, in the high 7s.
Okay. Well.
So the typical pH in soils that we've seen around here in Napa and Sonoma are relatively low, anywhere from the high 5s to the 6s. And so therefore it's necessary to lime the fields and work that lime into the field. So based on the soil analysis results, we'll be able to tailor the specific amounts of lime and work it into the soil to a specific depth, so that we can amend your soil to have a correct pH. And that process takes about anywhere from 2 to 3 months for the soil pH
just for the soil,
to reach the point where it's conducive to truffles.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the very first step, and then there's actually a fairly wide window for planting truffle trees, and it typically starts in November and ends about March, late March timeframe. During this time, the trees are dormant, and this is the best time to be planting the truffle trees. So there are a number of things that we need to look at based on the soil analysis. Amend the soil and look at trace elements profiles, and of course that's just on the tree side. There are a whole slew of other factors that we also have methodology and established practices. For example, irrigation and fencing, as well as tree protection, and every aspect of the truffle orchard is specified. So the idea really is we will provide all the know-how instead of the client partner having to go out and figure out, okay, well, what do I do? Okay. We have the answers, which are derived from our set of very massive amount of data. So we can advise based on your specific soil condition, your specific microclimate, what you need to do. So we get very involved with the details.
So what is the cost by acre? I mean, and assuming this is a flat land that is being already like kind of pretty much ready to go.
Yes.
And then how many trees do you put, between the space between trees?
Sure. So on a per acre basis, assuming you already have the land, so the land costs aside, if you have land that's ready to go, it's cleared and it's really ready to go. The range that I've seen our client partners is anywhere from $15,000 to $25,000 per acre, and that would include everything. Wow. So the trees, the fencing, the irrigation, the soil amendment, the weed mats, the tree protectors, et cetera. Everything together, the cost is anywhere from $15,000 to $25,000, and that really depends on your local labor costs, as well as if you have water already on site, or do you need to tap a well, et cetera. Yeah.
Well, it's very interesting. So, and 1 acre, how much kilos or pounds or do you get out of that?
Sure. Now, we mentioned there are two different types of truffles that principally we help cultivate. For the Perigord truffle, that sells routinely for $1,000, $1,200 a pound, we anticipate, and of course there's just like any agricultural crops, we anticipate on a per acre basis, anywhere from 30 pounds to 80 pounds per year. And if you do the math, you can calculate that you're looking at, for a 10-acre truffle orchard, you're looking at approaching $500,000 of profit every year. So that's for the Perigord truffle. Now, for the Burgundy truffle, actually sells for anywhere from a third to a half the price per pound of the Perigord truffle. But it yields much more. Twice or sometimes 3 times. So we're looking at anywhere from 80 pounds to up to 200 pounds of Burgundy truffle per acre.
Yeah. This is fantastic. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're still Tout de Suite Social Club, and we're talking about truffles. We're talking to Dr. Paul and Robert Chang. This is fantastic. The Truffle Festival in Napa is coming right around the corner, January 18th to the 21st. And this is the 3rd year doing that. So what is going on? I mean, what is the response of people, you know, that been participating the couple of years before that?
Oh, the feedback that we've gotten is just phenomenal. It's and people have come to the festival and have had just an incredible experience. I think you know, very often we hear from past participants that number one, they learn a tremendous amount in terms of truffle cultivation. Paul and I conduct scientific seminars that cover the basics of truffle cultivation, and therefore that's one set of activities that's in very, very high demand. And another very common feedback that we've gotten is that the chefs that we invited are you know, an incredible team. And usually someone would say, usually I would go to a Michelin star restaurant and have a wonderful dinner, and that would be a great experience. But coming to the Truffle Festival, we're not just getting courses from one Michelin star chef, but in this year's case, for example, we have 4 chefs that are Michelin starred, and we've assembled these chefs under one roof. For example, we have Nico Chessa from Valentino Restaurants in Los Angeles, and we have Michael Tusk from Quince in San Francisco. And this year we also have the pleasure of having Chef Marco Gubbiotti, who will be coming from Spello, Italy.
Oh, wow.
And of course, our very own Chef Ken Frank of La Toque here in Napa. So this incredible team of the best of the best culinary experts. They will be putting on a dinner that features multi-course, each course prepared expertly by by each of these chefs, and paired with the best wine for that course. So we've just heard incredible feedback on the experience.
Yeah, we did last year, and that was absolutely fantastic. And as a matter of fact, January the 3rd, we will have Ken Frank from La Toque coming over, and with Dominique Orsini from Silver Oak, and they will be cooking truffles and things like that. So if any of you watching the show are interested of coming over, send us an email and at contact@toutsuite.com, and we will let you know if we have some room left or not.
There's one thing I might add, Didier, and that is
sure.
this year we have an opportunity for all of our attendees to personally meet and mingle with the Michelin star chefs Friday night during the Friday night reception, and that's just a rare opportunity. Not every day do you get to actually meet and speak to a Michelin star chefs.
That's right.
And so that's a fantastic opportunity. And also new this year is the mushroom foray.
Hey, I like that.
Yeah, so the mushroom foray is it's actually very, very high demand. We're almost sold out from that activity. So that's the story goes that we have the past president of the San Francisco Mycological Society, David Campbell, who is an expert in edible mushrooms and mushroom identification and has led many mushroom foray tours, and he will be conducting the mushroom foray.
Yeah.
We'll be going into the forest here in Napa.
Which one?
We actually have a few different sites. What we're going to do is just a couple of weeks before the festival, we're actually going to go out there and assess which one of these sites is going to be most interesting.
Okay.
And then we'll go there on the day of the mushroom foray. But that's going to be so incredibly interesting because the time of the festival really coincides with the mushroom the height of the mushroom season.
Yeah.
Chanterelles and other porcini.
Yeah.
Porcini, we may or may not see them. Right now is the season, but there are many different other types of mushroom that you can see, and a lot of those are edible. So we feel particularly fortunate to have David this year leading this foray.
Well, David, I'm looking for like a morels, chanterelles, porcini, and what else? Those are pretty much
handicaps.
I don't know those.
Yeah,
I just So so there is still tickets available, and you got to go into the www.napatrufflefestival.com and get your tickets. This is almost sold out. This year is going to be absolutely fantastic. I'm dying to do a couple of events. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have Bill and his son, Rico. And Bill just flew from Italy, where he took his son visiting his family. And Bill, coming over, and let's talk about Rico and how he's doing, and let's talk about the training of a truffle dog. Dr. Parr, are you still with us?
Yes, yep, I'm here.
What do you think, pig or dogs?
Of the breed of dogs?
No, pigs or dogs?
Oh, God. Oh, well, absolutely pigs. Sorry, dogs.
How many fingers do you have?
Yeah, the problem with hunting with pigs is quite a few. You know, the older guys, I've seen them out in France where they hunt with a pig and the pig's trying to eat the truffle and they try and get in between the pig and the truffle. And, you know, these guys are missing fingers. So, yeah, it's got to be dogs.
All right. So, Bill, welcome to the show. Great to see you again. Really appreciate it. And you just told me this morning that you were coming back from Italy, and you took Rico to see his family. And let's talk about the dog and how you train him, and
Sure.
And what was the idea of raising a dog for truffle?
Sure. Well, I got Rico originally as a present for my partner. It was her birthday present, and she describes him as her best present ever. I said, well, include a trip to Italy. And I've had all these wonderful experiences meeting Robert and many other people. Rico gets all these great invitations, and I just take him along. And then a side benefit, I take him to see my patients in their homes as well. So in terms of training,
what do you mean by that?
Well, I'm a psychologist. I work with veterans, and I see them in their homes. And for many of them, I like to say wars keeps on giving or taking. Many of them have Rico give. Rico, if I say bachi, he gives him a little kiss, and they seem to like that. You can see Rico's pretty wound up right now. There's a lot of truffle smell here, and so Rico is what's called a lagotto romagnolo. Lago means lake in Italian, and originally a water retriever. The breed's been around since about 500 BC. So before the Romans, the Etruscans used a water retriever. That's why Rico has a little pair of shorts on the back. And they've been hunting truffle since about 1540, so they have a little bit of background in truffles. And so you can train any dog to hunt for truffles. Dogs are...
you can?
Any dog.
Oh, really? Okay.
Right. And so they use dogs to help detect cancer. They use dogs to help detect cell phones in prison and diabetes. And so basically, as a psychologist, it makes a lot of sense to me. And so you're just pairing the scenting to a reward. And so for Rico, when he was a puppy, the only toy he had was a truffle sewn into a bag, a tartufo. And so he's a natural retriever, as you can see. He loves that. And so what he has right now is a training device, and I've taken some truffle, and I've sewn it. So instead of sewing it, I took a sock, and that's an old truffle, and I put it in a sock, and as you can see, Rico's like captivated by it. And so he sometimes it's hard for him to determine whether he'd rather have a truffle or a treat.
It'll be louder. We can hear you from the.
So sometimes for Rico, it's difficult to determine if he'd rather have a truffle or a treat. So it can be, you have to be a little careful with him when you're out truffle hunting. He'll eat them given an opportunity. Yeah.
He's a connoisseur.
He is a connoisseur, yes. So he'll find indigenous truffles as well as goes out and goes into orchards and able to find cultivated truffles as well.
So that's something that we haven't talked earlier. I mean, it is really important for you if you like truffles to go to this event on the 18th and for like this weekend, because we haven't talked about the indigenous truffles. I don't think we're gonna do this now because we still have just about 10 minutes, and I really want to focus on the dog here and Bill. But this thing grows everywhere, right?
Sure. They have different types of truffles, and so that can be somewhat confusing. But, so for the training, basically, you're just pairing to. Okay, Rico, set. Rico, set. Good boy. So you're pairing a scent to a reward, and so if I hid this in the room, which I'm not going to, but if I hid this in the room, I said, Dove, that means where is it? He'll go out and find it. And he theoretically should retrieve it to me, but right now he's pretty excited about this truffle. And so it's relatively short process. For Rico, it was much easier because he started when he was a little puppy.
Yeah.
But you can train just about any dog. Dog sense of smell is exponentially better, and so you can use truffle oil. And oil is it's an artificial oil, but for scent training, it's fine.
Yeah.
Rico's privileged enough he's actually able to use real truffle, and I have some fresh truffle that I'm making truffle cheese in, or I can make some truffle butter later today, and truffle eggs, and I can use some of those for training myself as well as a reward.
Do you have like a championship of truffle retrieval? Do you have a championship? The competition for dogs.
I haven't done that, but they certainly have some in different parts of the country as well as other parts of the world as well. And so for me, it's kind of more of a fun part. But what I find in terms of truffle training, it's process.
Yeah.
And so it's just a matter of taking the time, pairing a scent to a reward. And for a dog like Rico or a retriever, it's a natural. You put it in something they can play with and let them go retrieve it.
Yeah. So why truffles? I mean, why not? I don't know. Birds or.
Sure. Well, you've eaten a truffle, right?
Yes.
Why not truffles? So truffles
but did you know that? I mean, that you had truffle around the house and things like that. It would be like what truffles?
Well, similar to Robert, I've had some truffle experiences. My mother's side is Italian.
Okay.
And actually, my grandmother would say you're not Italian, you're Sicilian. And so I've had some experience with truffle from a young age, and then kind of off and on through adulthood. And so originally, when I was looking for another dog, I had remembered hearing about these dogs, and so started doing some investigation. And it was quite a process to actually find Rico. I found somebody up in Seattle who had just talked to somebody who just came back from Sicily, who had just seen one of these dogs, and I talked to her, and there was a lot of negotiation in Italy, and eventually I ended up going to Italy and taking my partner Brienne, and we went to Italy to get Rico. And so it was actually the person, Mario, that I got him from didn't speak any English, and I speak a little Italian. I'm trying to write down everything he was saying. So it's been a great process. And so for me, it's been a side benefit of, I just like taking Rico for a walk and you get a gourmet meal along the way.
But, I guess my question is more, to be more specific, is how, why truffles? I mean, you knew that the truffle were growing around the region, and did you guys know each other before that? How do you like
Sure. So I just knew a little bit about that part of it. I actually heard a local woman here, Connie Green, on National Public Radio, and she was the one who actually introduced me to Robert. I had heard her on National Public Radio. I sent her an email, and we corresponded back and forth, and she told me about the first Napa Truffle Festival. And so at that time, Rico was much better trained for finding truffles than I was. And I realized that. He had been eating indigenous truffles on our walks I wasn't even aware of until I actually met Robert and did a little more training on my own.
Oh, okay.
So he was much better trained than I was.
Okay. All right. I see. So, and I think he burst the...
yeah, he burst that one.
Yeah. That's right. So are you like traveling all over the country, and are you training other dogs, or?
Rico has his own Facebook. It's called Rico the Lagoto, and as a result of that, I've gotten people from all over who've asked questions, and so I posted some things on his webpage or his Facebook on how to train truffle dogs, and we've gone to different locations to help other people out. I'm pretty low key about, in terms of not really in terms of formal training, but it's a pretty simple process. And I have on Rico's Facebook an old book from 1800s. It was a German translation of an Italian book into English, and it talked about some of the old ways to do it. People also use clicker training, which I don't.
Yeah.
But some people will use these little clickers as part of it. There are formal training processes in different areas.
Yeah.
And in fact, as part of our client-partner relationship, we actually help provide dog training.
Oh, is that right?
That's right.
So I'm actually close to train a dog, because if you're using truffles to do that, real truffle, this thing is gotta cost you a fortune.
Well, Rico was fortunate because the person who helped train him originally would use real truffles, and so I was able to use real truffles. The truffle oil you can certainly utilize as well, which is a lot cheaper. But I think there's some advantages. So what Rico is gnawing away at right now is some real truffle. So usually I don't let him chew away like that, but for today I guess I'm spoiling him.
This is awesome. I mean, So, what is next? Are you gonna try to raise all the dogs, or this is do you?
Well, I think
breed them?
For Rico, he's probably in the process of maybe having some puppies, and so I think we'll probably have a few other dogs. And people invite us out to go on their truffle orchards and look, and so we usually go out and like we would in Italy or France and bring wine and cheese and have a good time together. And I usually try to help the people we go out to help them train their dogs and tell them what to do as well. And so there are people who train dogs, or you can train them yourself, which I think with a little bit of assistance you can do that.
Yeah. And you have him like practicing pretty much every day?
I wish I could say every day, but I think for him he's good enough that a thing called intermittent conditioning, and so he picks up the scent, and I can just have to keep doing a little bit of training. So I'd say in a week we probably have 3 or 4 training sessions, and then during the season we try to go out as frequently as we're able to.
Hey, Dr. Paul, do you have a dog?
I don't actually. We have a truffle dog training school here with resident dogs, but we don't have one at home at the moment. But mainly because I'm just traveling so much, so we take out our own dogs from the dog school, but not my own one yet.
That's your work.
We are looking at dogs.
The Chihuahua. Put it in first. Well, I mean, if any dogs can do, I mean, why not?
Well, there are certainly certain types of dogs that would be more suitable because in typical environments where you need to go and look for truffles out in the middle of the winter, and if it's particularly a big field, then the dog has to have some endurance.
Yeah.
So a smaller dog would not have the type of endurance. While theoretically you can train a Chihuahua to look for truffles, you wouldn't be able to cover acres and acres with a dog.
Yeah, so, you know, I mean, this is like, you know, I like hunting, and this is incredible. Just watching the dog walking the field, you know, and hunting, and or like you know, looking for truffles, or the work of a dog is quite incredible.
Where the refinement really comes in is, so Rico he's barking at one of Robert's truffle trees. He can smell you must have good roots there. Good boy. So one of the things that you're competing with is 10,000 years worth of Rico. You're competing with 10,000 years of training, so they will start hunting other animals and things, and so that's where just I think the practice with them and reward and redirection is really important. So spending that time. So in here, there's a few distractions that Rico can find this, where if we were outside and there were a lot of animals and things, then I really have to kind of keep. And so I don't want to make it sound like it's a very simple process, but it's certainly a labor of love.
Yeah. Okay. I see like you have like your tools here with you, and show us a couple of tools that are absolutely necessary for truffle hunting.
Well, I think one of the things, at least in terms of practice, is having some sort of truffle, either a real truffle like we have here, or truffle oil. In Italy, they call it a bosa, and basically I've just taken a sock.
I was looking for those this morning.
Yeah. Yes, I pulled them out of your back there. And actually, some people say truffles can smell a little bit like a sock, so it actually works out quite well.
Like a dirty sock?
Like a dirty sock. And then I use an implement, and I have several different ones, so depending on the type of soil, to help you actually try to dig it out. So Rico will try to help you as well, and then he needs some assistance.
Yeah.
And so part of it is, like Robert said, is that ability to be able to want to be outside the dog. So the reason this breed was around since 500 BC, before the Romans, the Etruscans used them as a water retriever. And so in about 1540, the area in the Emilia Romagna part of Italy, they started draining the swamps, and so this dog started becoming extinct. And so someone realized, like Robert was saying, that they have a good nose, that they are very smart, and they could stay outside for hours. And so one of the things what I found with Rico when we go truffle hunting is that he doesn't want to go home.
Yeah.
Which is a good problem.
So you keep it on the leash all the time?
It depends on the place where we are. So if it's enclosed and I'm not worried about mountain lion eating him, I might let him off if we're not. But a lot of times in an orchard, I will put him on a leash so we can go down the rows.
Yeah.
Did you find a truffle?
So we're about to wrap up, but Robert Cheng brought me these flowers this morning.
It's a very expensive amount of flowers.
So this is what you plant.
That's right. So these this is an oak tree that has been inoculated with truffles on its roots, and therefore you would plant this during the planting window from November to March. And once in the ground, it will continue to grow to a big tall tree. And as the root system grows, after you plant it into the ground, the mycorrhiza, the truffle organism, keeps expanding with the root system. And that's how you end up with acres and acres of trees with truffles on the roots.
I mean, it doesn't look much, huh?
It doesn't look very much, but it's the secret really is all in the root system, and in the process, the technology and the science that go into such a process.
This is awesome. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Really appreciate. Robert, we'll see you like in a couple of weeks. For the doctor. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I think we're dying to meet you. Any plans of coming up to the States?
Yeah, I'll be over for the Truffle Festival. So I'll be over for that whole section. So I look forward to seeing you then.
That'd be fantastic. I've been meeting quite a bit of Brits lately, and You know, you guys are good guys. You know, I don't care what other French says, but this is awesome. So, the 18th of January to the 21st of January, this is the Napa Fest, Truffle Festival, and it's going to be like a lot of things: dinners, foraging mushrooms, just meeting those guys. It's going to be meeting Rico. Just the dog is absolutely fantastic. If you have any questions again, or you can go and tweet at Toot Social, or you can definitely go and tweet at Napa Truffle Fest. You need to get your tickets. www.napatrufflefest.com.
Napa Truffle Festival.
Okay. Festival.com. Voila. And this is it. Again, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Did I miss anything? Yes, I did. What I missed is January 3rd again. We will have Chef Ken Frank coming up with Dominique Orsini from Silver Oak, doing a little cooking, some truffles, some Pinot, some Cabernet Sauvignon from Silver Oak. It's going to be awesome. Get in touch with us if you want to come over. We'll be happy to have you.
And one last thing about the Napa Truffle Festival, and certainly there's a wide variety of activities throughout the weekend, and I think one of the most popular events is the marketplace that will be held at the Oxbow Public Market, and that is on Monday, the 21st of January, where we essentially take over the Oxbow Market.
Is there a breakfast there?
And actually from 10 to 2, and all the vendors there will be serving items featuring truffles, for example, truffle pizza, truffle ice cream, etc. So that is one activity where last year it was very, very popular.
Yeah.
Right. 200 or 300 people showed up, and
popular with children.
And I'm sorry.
Popular with children.
Popular with children as well. It's a very, very inexpensive way to sort of take part in the truffle weekend.
Yeah, fantastic. And kids can come up and have a picture taken with a Rico.
That's right. And
like Santa Claus and then Rico. And
children and adults can love the picture with Rico.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. And until next time, I'm Didier and from Toot Suite. Hasta la vista. Ciao.
Buon appetito.
Buon appetito.